Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something real simple, but real serious. What are you going to do with the time that's been handed to you? Because make no mistake, 2026 is not just another number on a calendar. It's a gift, and every gift comes with responsibility. You see, life doesn't give refunds on wasted days. The hours you let slip by, the purpose you postpone, the calling you keep pushing to, someday, those moments don't come back knocking. Time is quiet, but it's honest. It will expose what you value and reveal what you've been avoiding. Some of you walked into this room tired, not because you've done too much, but because you've been carrying dreams you haven't acted on. Others are comfortable, and that might be the most dangerous place of all. Comfort can lull you to sleep, while destiny is calling your name. And faith isn't just believing God can do something. Faith is believing He's already given you what you need to start. You weren't brought into 2026 by accident. You're here because there's something you're meant to build, something you're meant to heal, someone you're meant to become. God doesn't waste seasons, people do. And when you understand that every morning is mercy, every challenge is training, and every setback is preparation, your perspective shifts. This year isn't about perfection. It's about intention. It's about waking up and deciding that fear will no longer drive, excuses will no longer speak louder than purpose, and yesterday will no longer have more power than today. Because when you align your discipline with your faith, ordinary days turn into defining moments. 2026 is waiting on your obedience, your courage, your yes. And the question isn't whether this year has potential. The question is whether you're finally ready to honor it. Time is a gift, not a guarantee. That truth sounds simple, but it carries weight if you let it sit with you. Because most people don't treat time like a gift. They treat it like an unlimited supply. We assume tomorrow is automatic. We plan like next year is owed to us. We talk about one day as if it's written into a contract somewhere. But time doesn't sign contracts. It shows up and it leaves, whether you noticed it or not. Every day you wake up is not routine. It's mercy. It's opportunity wrapped in ordinary moments. The fact that you opened your eyes this morning means grace decided to keep investing in you. Not because you earned it, not because you got everything right yesterday, but because there is still purpose attached to your name. And when you start seeing time that way, you stop wasting it on things that don't build you, stretch you, or move you closer to who you were created to be. The problem is, familiarity breeds carelessness. When something shows up every day, we stop respecting it. We scroll past hours. We give our best energy to distractions and our leftovers to our destiny. We say we're waiting for the right moment, not realizing the moment is waiting on us. Time doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present. Fully present. A distracted life is one of the most expensive lives you can live. There are people who ran out of time with dreams still locked inside them, songs unwritten, apologies unsaid, callings unpursued, not because they lacked talent or faith, but because they believed they had more time than they actually did. The greatest tragedy isn't failure, it's potential that never got a chance to be expressed because procrastination kept pushing purpose further down the road. Faith teaches us that tomorrow isn't promised, but it also teaches us that today is powerful. That's not meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. When you understand that time is a gift, you start asking better questions. You ask why you're doing what you're doing. You ask who you're becoming in the process. You ask whether your daily habits are aligned with the prayers you keep praying. God gives time the way a master gives tools, not to admire them, but to build something with them. And every minute you're given is a vote toward the kind of life you're constructing. You are always building, whether intentionally or unintentionally. You're either building discipline or excuses, character or comfort, legacy or regret. Time doesn't take sides. It just records the choices you make with it. When you realize time is not guaranteed, urgency replaces apathy, gratitude replaces entitlement. You stop waiting for permission to live fully. You stop shrinking your calling to fit your fears. You start moving with purpose, speaking with clarity, and choosing with wisdom, because you understand that every delay has a cost and every decision shapes the future. You'll eventually stand in. The clock doesn't slow down for uncertainty. It doesn't pause for self-doubt. It keeps moving steady and impartial, while heaven watches to see what you'll do with what you've been given. And when you truly grasp that time is a gift, you stop asking for more time and start asking for more courage to use it well. Wasted days cannot be reclaimed. That's a hard truth, and it's one most people avoid because it forces accountability. Time doesn't rewind for regret. It doesn't reset because you've learned a lesson late. Once a day is gone, it becomes a memory, and memories can inspire you or haunt you, but they cannot be edited. The hours you lost to hesitation, the weeks you surrendered to fear, the years you diluted with excuses, they don't come back with a second chance label attached. Many people think wasting time means doing nothing. That's not true. You can be busy and still waste your days. You can stay occupied, exhausted, and distracted while never moving an inch closer to purpose. Wasted days often look productive on the outside, but empty on the inside. They're filled with activity that never translates into growth, motion that never leads to transformation, noise that drowns out direction. Every day you are given is like a deposit placed into your account. You can invest it or you can spend it carelessly, but once it's gone, the balance adjusts whether you're ready or not. And what makes wasted days so painful is not just the loss of time, but the compound effect. One unintentional day turns into a week turns into a year, and one day you look back and realize the life you wanted didn't drift away all at once. It leaked away slowly. Regret often doesn't come from what we tried and failed at. It comes from what we never tried at all. The phone call you kept putting off. The discipline you planned to start next Monday. The step of faith you postponed because you didn't feel ready. Readiness is a myth when it comes to purpose. You don't feel ready, you move, and readiness meets you along the way. Wasted days are born when we confuse preparation with delay. There are moments when rest is necessary, and that is not waste. Rest restores vision, but there is a difference between rest and avoidance. Rest has intention, avoidance has fear, and many wasted days are simply fear dressed up as caution. We tell ourselves we're being patient, but deep down we're just afraid of being exposed, of being seen trying, of discovering what we're truly capable of. Faith reminds us that accountability is not condemnation. It's an invitation to live awake. God doesn't point out wasted days to shame you. He reveals them to realign you. Grace doesn't erase responsibility. It empowers change. But grace still operates in real time, and time still moves forward. Yesterday can instruct you, but it cannot be relived. The only place obedience can happen is now. When people say, "I wish I knew then what I know now," what they're really saying is that awareness came too late. Wisdom is expensive when it arrives after opportunity has passed. That's why today matters so much. Today is the only space where discipline can be practiced, decisions can be corrected, and direction can be chosen. Every wasted day teaches something, but it charges tuition. It costs momentum. It costs confidence. It costs clarity. And the longer you delay alignment, the heavier the price becomes. That's not punishment, it's reality. Life rewards attention. Life responds to intention. And while yesterday may be gone, the awareness of that loss is meant to sharpen how you handle the hours you still hold in your hands. Comfort can be the enemy of purpose, not because comfort is evil, but because it is convincing. It whispers instead of shouting. It tells you that where you are is good enough, that stretching can wait, that there's no urgency to move when things are manageable. Comfort rarely asks anything of you, and that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Purpose, on the other hand, always demands growth, and growth requires discomfort. Most people don't abandon their dreams because they fail. They abandon them because life becomes tolerable. Bills are paid. Routines are established. Pain isn't loud anymore. And when discomfort fades, hunger often fades with it. You stop striving not because you reached your potential, but because you found a place that doesn't challenge you. Comfort becomes a substitute for fulfillment, even though deep down you know you were made for more. Comfort has a way of shrinking vision. What once felt urgent starts to feel optional. The fire you had in the beginning cools into convenience. You tell yourself you'll take the risk later, speak up later, step out later, without realizing that later is comfort's favorite word. Purpose doesn't announce itself with perfect timing. It nudges you while you're still unsure, while the ground still feels unstable beneath your feet. Faith was never designed to coexist peacefully with comfort. Faith requires movement before clarity. It asks you to walk without seeing the entire path. Comfort demands guarantees. It wants safety nets, approvals, and predictable outcomes. And the moment you start prioritizing comfort over obedience, you begin negotiating with your calling. You don't say no to it outright. You just delay it, soften it, and reshape it into something less demanding. There are prayers you can't keep praying if you intend to stay comfortable. Prayers for growth, for impact, for elevation all come with disruption attached. Elevation changes environments. Growth exposes weaknesses. Impact attracts resistance. Comfort avoids all three. That's why comfort often feels peaceful, while your spirit feels restless. The restlessness is not dissatisfaction, it's direction. Many people confuse stability with purpose. Stability is about maintaining what you have. Purpose is about becoming who you're meant to be. Stability asks, how do I protect this? Purpose asks, how do I expand? Comfort wants preservation. Purpose requires sacrifice. And every season where you choose comfort over purpose, something in you goes unused. Look at how easily comfort numbs urgency. You start accepting less effort, less discipline, less excellence, because nothing is forcing you to demand more from yourself. But purpose doesn't respond to pressure from the outside. It responds to conviction on the inside. When conviction fades, complacency takes its place, and complacency slowly erodes courage. God often allows discomfort not as punishment, but as preparation. Discomfort reveals what comfort hides. It shows you where you've been relying on ease instead of faith, habit instead of obedience. When everything is comfortable, it's easy to forget how much you need God. But when you're stretched, when you're uncertain, when you're required to trust instead of control, purpose becomes clearer. Comfort will always offer you a smaller life that feels safe. Purpose will always invite you into a bigger life that requires faith. And every day, quietly and consistently, you choose between the two by how willing you are to stay stretched, to stay hungry, to stay obedient when settling would be so much easier. Keynote No. 4, expanded into 600 words. Don't add ending sentences. Don't give any headings. Faith requires action, not intention alone. Intention sounds good, and it feels responsible, but intention without movement is just a conversation you keep having with yourself. Many people mean well. They plan well. They talk well. But faith was never measured by what you meant to do. It has always been revealed by what you were willing to do when fear, uncertainty, and resistance showed up. There is a difference between believing something and acting on it. Belief can live quietly in your mind. Action demands your body, your time, your reputation, your comfort. You can believe all day long and still remain in the same place. Faith begins when belief steps into motion. That's when risk enters the room. That's when excuses get exposed. That's when trust stops being theoretical and becomes personal. Intention often waits for confidence. Faith moves with obedience. Confidence says, I'll act when I feel ready. Faith says, I'll act because I've been called. And the truth is, confidence usually shows up after obedience, not before it. Waiting to feel ready is one of the most subtle ways people delay their purpose while convincing themselves they're being wise. Faith does not ignore fear. It moves despite it. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision that fear will not be the final authority. When you say you have faith, but never take a step that requires it, what you really have is comfort dressed up as belief. Faith always costs something. It costs certainty. It costs control. It costs the option to stay where you are. Scripture is filled with people who had to move before they saw results. The path didn't appear until they stepped forward. The provision didn't show up until they committed. The breakthrough didn't happen until action created space for it. Faith was never about having all the answers. It was about trusting the one who does and being willing to act on that trust. Intention loves delay. It thrives in someday. Action lives in now. You can't obey yesterday, and you can't act tomorrow. Faith only functions in the present tense. Every day you postpone obedience, you strengthen the habit of hesitation. Over time, hesitation begins to feel normal, and disobedience starts to feel justified. Action clarifies calling. Many people say they're confused about their purpose, but confusion often disappears once movement begins. Direction reveals itself to those who are already in motion. Stillness rarely brings clarity, obedience does. When you move, doors open or close. Either way, you receive information you never would have gained by standing still. Grace does not excuse an action, it empowers movement. God's grace gives you permission to try, to stumble, to learn, and to grow. But grace does not replace responsibility. You are still required to show up, to decide, to act. Faith without action does not mature. It stagnates. It becomes fragile, easily shaken by opposition because it has never been tested. Every act of faith, no matter how small, strengthens spiritual muscle. You don't wake up one day with unshakable faith. You build it step by step, decision by decision, action by action. Each obedient move reinforces trust. Each risk taken deepens dependence. And over time, faith stops being something you talk about and becomes something you live out in real, tangible ways. God assigns purpose to every season, even the ones that don't look productive at first glance. We like seasons that feel like progress, movement, visible success. We celebrate harvest seasons and overlook preparation seasons. But purpose is not limited to moments of applause. Some seasons are loud, others are quiet, and both are intentional. Nothing you walk through is random, even when it feels repetitive, delayed, or unclear. There are seasons where things are building beneath the surface. Roots grow underground before anything breaks through the soil. If you judge a season only by what you can see, you may abandon it too early. Many people walk away from growth because it doesn't look impressive yet. They assume that if nothing is changing externally, nothing is happening at all. But God often does his deepest work where no one is watching. Every season carries an assignment. Some seasons teach discipline. Others teach patience. Some stretch your faith. Others expose your character. There are seasons meant for refinement, where distractions are stripped away and habits are confronted. And there are seasons meant for expansion, where what you've learned is finally tested in real time. The mistake is wanting the reward of one season while avoiding the responsibility of another. Waiting seasons are especially misunderstood. Waiting does not mean idle. Waiting is active trust. It's learning to be faithful without immediate results. It's choosing obedience when affirmation is absent. These seasons develop endurance, and endurance is necessary for sustainability. Without it, success can collapse under its own weight. God is less concerned with how fast you arrive than with who you become along the way. Some seasons feel like loss, but they're actually transitions. Things end so new things can begin. Relationships change, roles shift, doors close. And while it's tempting to cling to what was familiar, purpose often requires release. You cannot carry yesterday's methods into tomorrow's assignment. Holding on too tightly to an old season can prevent you from recognizing the new one unfolding right in front of you. There are also corrective seasons, times when progress slows because alignment matters more than speed. These seasons invite reflection, repentance, and recalibration. They force you to ask whether your direction matches your calling. They interrupt momentum, not to punish, but to protect. Ignoring the lessons of these seasons only guarantees you'll repeat them later. Prosperous seasons have purpose too, and they come with responsibility. Blessing is not just provision, it's preparation for greater impact. Increase tests stewardship. Visibility tests humility. Influence tests integrity. God watches how you handle abundance, just as closely as He watches how you endure lack. Every season reveals something about what you truly value. When you stop resisting your season and start learning from it, peace replaces frustration. You realize you don't need to rush what is still forming. You don't need to compare your timeline to someone else's calling. Purpose is not rushed by pressure. It unfolds through obedience, awareness, and trust. God does not waste seasons, but He allows you to misunderstand them if you refuse to listen. Each season is speaking. The question is whether you are paying attention. When you recognize that even the uncomfortable, unclear, and inconvenient moments carry intention, you begin to live with greater patience and deeper faith, understanding that where you are right now is part of what you are being prepared for. Discipline unlocks destiny, not because discipline is exciting, but because it is consistent. Destiny is often imagined as a moment, a breakthrough, a sudden arrival. But in reality, destiny is built quietly through daily decisions no one applauds. What you do repeatedly matters more than what you do occasionally. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now, and that choice shapes the direction of your life. Talent may open a door, but discipline keeps it open. Motivation comes and goes, but discipline remains when enthusiasm fades. There will be days when you don't feel inspired, when progress feels slow, when effort feels unrewarded. Discipline carries you through those days. It does not wait for emotion, it moves on commitment. And commitment is what transforms potential into reality. Many people pray for outcomes that require habits they refuse to build. They ask for strength, but avoid structure. They ask for growth, but resist routine. Destiny does not respond to wishful thinking. It responds to alignment. Discipline aligns your actions with your intentions. It brings order to chaos and focus to distraction. Discipline is not about restriction. It is about direction. It doesn't limit your life. It protects it. Every boundary you set around your time, energy, and focus creates space for purpose to flourish. Without discipline, distractions decide your schedule. With discipline, you decide what matters. The life you want is often on the other side of habits you've been avoiding. Faith and discipline are not opposites, they work together. Faith sets the vision. Discipline sustains the journey. Faith believes God can do it. Discipline prepares you to steward it when He does. Breakthrough without discipline can become burnout. Success without discipline can become self-destruction. God often waits to release more until you prove faithful with what you already have. Discipline trains your character before destiny tests it. When pressure increases, what you practice in private shows up in public. Small, consistent disciplines build resilience. They sharpen discernment. They strengthen integrity. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. There is nothing glamorous about discipline. It is repetitive. It is lonely at times. It requires saying no to things that feel good so you can say yes to things that matter. But discipline compounds. What feels insignificant today becomes powerful over time. A single choice may not change your life, but repeated choices will. Lack of discipline always costs more than discipline ever will. Undisciplined time leads to rushed decisions. Undisciplined habits lead to regret. Undisciplined faith leads to instability. Discipline may feel heavy in the moment, but it produces freedom later. It gives you options. It builds trust within yourself. It creates momentum. Destiny does not arrive fully formed. It unfolds as you grow into it. Discipline is how you grow. It is how you prepare for responsibility you haven't received yet. Every disciplined action is a vote for the future you say you want. And when those votes accumulate, destiny is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you step into through the life you have consistently built. Discipline unlocks destiny, not because discipline is exciting, but because it is consistent. Destiny is often imagined as a moment, a breakthrough, a sudden arrival. But in reality, destiny is built quietly through daily decisions no one applauds. What you do repeatedly matters more than what you do occasionally. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now, and that choice shapes the direction of your life. Talent may open a door, but discipline keeps it open. Motivation comes and goes, but discipline remains when enthusiasm fades. There will be days when you don't feel inspired, when progress feels slow, when effort feels unrewarded. Discipline carries you through those days. It does not wait for emotion, it moves on commitment. And commitment is what transforms potential into reality. Many people pray for outcomes that require habits they refuse to build. They ask for strength, but avoid structure. They ask for growth, but resist routine. Destiny does not respond to wishful thinking. It responds to alignment. Discipline aligns your actions with your intentions. It brings order to chaos and focus to distraction. Discipline is not about restriction. It is about direction. It doesn't limit your life. It protects it. Every boundary you set around your time, energy, and focus creates space for purpose to flourish. Without discipline, distractions decide your schedule. With discipline, you decide what matters. The life you want is often on the other side of habits you've been avoiding. Faith and discipline are not opposites, they work together. Faith sets the vision. Discipline sustains the journey. Faith believes God can do it. Discipline prepares you to steward it when He does. Breakthrough without discipline can become burnout. Success without discipline can become self-destruction. God often waits to release more until you prove faithful with what you already have. Discipline trains your character before destiny tests it. When pressure increases, what you practice in private shows up in public. Small, consistent disciplines build resilience. They sharpen discernment. They strengthen integrity. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. There is nothing glamorous about discipline. It is repetitive. It is lonely at times. It requires saying no to things that feel good so you can say yes to things that matter. But discipline compounds. What feels insignificant today becomes powerful over time. A single choice may not change your life, but repeated choices will. Lack of discipline always costs more than discipline ever will. Undisciplined time leads to rushed decisions. Undisciplined habits lead to regret. Undisciplined faith leads to instability. Discipline may feel heavy in the moment, but it produces freedom later. It gives you options. It builds trust within yourself. It creates momentum. Destiny does not arrive fully formed. It unfolds as you grow into it. Discipline is how you grow. It is how you prepare for responsibility you haven't received yet. Every disciplined action is a vote for the future you say you want. And when those votes accumulate, destiny is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you step into through the life you have consistently built. Fear and excuses delay calling in subtle ways, rarely announcing themselves as obstacles. They sound reasonable. They present themselves as caution, logic, or responsibility. Fear rarely says, stop. It says, not yet. Excuses rarely say never. They say when the time is right. And before you realize it, purpose is no longer being pursued, only discussed. Fear's greatest weapon is imagination. It paints worst-case scenarios and convinces you they are inevitable. It tells you what might go wrong, who might judge you, what you might lose. And when fear is left unchallenged, it begins to feel like wisdom. You start calling hesitation discernment and avoidance patience. But fear does not protect your future, it preserves your comfort. Excuses thrive where accountability is weak. They grow when no one questions your delay, when no one challenges your comfort, when no one expects more from you. Excuses can be intellectual, emotional, or spiritual. You can excuse yourself with logic, with pain from the past, even with misplaced humility. You can say you're not ready, not qualified, not worthy, not equipped, forgetting that calling has never been based on qualification alone. Calling often arrives before confidence. It shows up while you're still uncertain, still learning, still flawed. If you wait until fear disappears, you will wait forever. Fear is not a signal to stop. It is often a sign that what you're approaching matters. Purpose stretches you beyond what you can control, and fear naturally rises when control fades. Excuses also feed on comparison. You look at someone else's progress and tell yourself you're behind, that it's too late, that the moment has passed. Or you look at someone further along and decide you're not enough. Comparison distorts timing and erodes courage. Calling is personal. It is not in competition with anyone else's journey. Faith does not eliminate fear, but it does give you a choice about who you listen to. Fear speaks loudly, but it has no authority unless you grant it. Excuses sound convincing, but they crumble under obedience. Every time you act despite fear, fear loses credibility. Every time you confront an excuse with action, momentum is restored. Delayed obedience is still disobedience, even when it's wrapped in good intentions. Purpose doesn't disappear when ignored, but it does wait. And the longer it waits, the heavier it feels. What once excited you begins to intimidate you. What once felt possible begins to feel distant. Not because calling changed, but because hesitation created distance. God does not shame you for fear, but He does not negotiate with excuses. He calls you forward, not when you are fearless, but when you are willing. Courage is not confidence. It is obedience in the presence of fear. When you move, strength meets you. When you speak, clarity comes. When you step, the ground holds. Fear and excuses only have power when you let them decide. Calling responds to movement. It awakens when you act. And the moment you stop waiting for fear to leave and start moving anyway, you realize that what you were afraid of was never as strong as what you were called to do. 2026 demands intentional living because drifting has become too easy. Life will happily fill your days for you if you don't decide how they will be used. Distractions are no longer accidental. They are designed, refined, and constantly competing for your attention. Without intention, you don't choose your direction, you inherit it. And inherited direction rarely leads to purpose. Intentional living begins with awareness. You start paying attention to where your time goes, what your energy feeds, and which voices shape your thinking. Most people don't waste their lives all at once. They waste them in fragments. Minutes lost here, focus scattered there, commitments made without conviction. Intentionality gathers those fragments and gives them meaning. To live intentionally is to live by design rather than default. Default living reacts. Intentional living decides. Reaction keeps you busy. Decision makes you effective. When you don't define your priorities, everything feels urgent. But when priorities are clear, distractions lose their authority. Intentional living is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters most. Faith gives intentional living its foundation. You are not moving randomly. You are responding purposefully. Intentionality aligns your daily actions with your deeper values. It asks hard questions about why you say yes, why you say no, and what you are actually building with your life. It requires honesty because self-deception thrives in unexamined routines. Intentional living also requires courage. Choosing purpose means declining options that don't align, even when they are popular, comfortable, or profitable. It means being misunderstood at times. It means resisting the pressure to measure your life by speed, visibility, or applause. Intentional living values alignment over approval. 2026 is not asking for perfection. It is asking for clarity. You don't need to have everything figured out, but you do need to know what you are aiming at. Direction matters more than pace. Small, intentional steps taken consistently will outperform sporadic bursts of effort driven by emotion. Intentional living honors process. When you live intentionally, your habits become allies instead of obstacles. You build rhythms that support your purpose rather than sabotage it. You stop relying on motivation and start relying on structure. Intentional habits protect your focus when life gets loud. They create stability when emotions fluctuate. Intentional living turns faith into practice. Prayer becomes guidance, not escape. Reflection becomes correction, not regret. Action becomes obedience, not pressure. Your days begin to carry weight, not because they are dramatic, but because they are aligned. Time responds differently to intention. Days feel fuller, not because you do more, but because you waste less. Progress becomes visible, not always to others, but to you. Peace increases, not because life is easier, but because your life makes sense. 2026 will not slow down to wait for you. It will move forward with or without your participation. Intentional living is how you meet it with purpose instead of regret, with direction instead of drift, with faith instead of fear, choosing each day to live awake, aware, and aligned